Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Hernandez. Today I'm going to be talking with some teachers on our campus about the Fundamental Five, which is going to be a new strategy that we are going to be expected to be showing in our lessons or in our classroom as we get observed. So I want to go ahead and get started. Thank you. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here today. The reason I have you guys here today is because I wanted to talk to you all about something new that administration is going to be looking for as they come into our classrooms and they're doing observations. I know that some of the strategies that you're going to hear today you probably already do in your classroom, but I just wanted to go over them so that way if you have any questions or anything that we need to clarify, we can do that today. That's going to be the implementation of the Fundamental Five. So the objective for today is to become familiar with the components of the Fundamental Five and to discover the advantages of implementing strategies designed to reinforce learning. So basically, we teach you what it is, go over what it is, and how you can implement it in your classroom. And of course, some of the benefits. So what are the Fundamental Five? The Fundamental Five we have here in our chart. We start here with framing the lesson, teaching in the power zone, praise and encouragement, critical writing, and small group and purposeful talking. So just to kind of outline what we're going to be looking at today, and then we're going to go one by one. So let's start with framing the lesson. In framing the lesson, um, the expectation here is something that you probably already do. Basically, is outlining your lesson so that way the students know what exactly is expected of them or what they're going to be learning today. We are encouraged to have our objective up on our board. Actually, it is also encouraged throughout the Fundamental Five that you have the objective not so much in the terms that we understand as teachers for our TEKS, but more so in a vocabulary that the students can understand. That way they are able to understand what it is they're expected to be learning. What it does is it guides the learner, it helps them focus, it helps them set priorities, and let them know what they should be learning at the end. And then the product is going to be basically some sort of paper or some sort of instruction that you're going to give them. You can let them know in advance at the end of this lesson, we're going to be doing an exit ticket, or at the end of this lesson, we're going to be doing a short writing frame so that way they are already planning on that in their head as they go or listen to your lesson. So, says here, Robert Mager in his book, Preparing Instructional Objectives, describes an objective as a collection of words and or pictures and diagrams intended to let others know what you intend for the students to achieve. So I know that we all know this, but our objective is what we are expected to teach the students, and we're just going to be portraying that to them, letting them know what exactly we expect from them. Tips for your daily objective. So some of the tips for your daily objective are to place it in the classroom where students can see the written objective and product. So I know walking into some of your classrooms I've seen, and I know pretty much standard that we have it all written on our board. We have a specified place. I think it would be beneficial for you to have it in the same place every day. That way the students know exactly where they need to turn to look to see your objectives. Discuss the objective at the beginning of the class, which of course is part of framing your lesson. Let them know what is expected of them today or what is the expected outcome. Make sure it is reasonable to complete the objective in one daily lesson or class. So we have to be reasonable, of course. We have to make sure that the expectation that we're setting for that day is something that we are going to be able to complete in our 45 or 50-minute window. The objective needs to be kid friendly, I mentioned earlier, so that way they understand. If we use uh, I call them grown up words with our students or big words that they don't understand, then they are not really able or they're not going to be able to process that information as well. And then the objective must be specific enough to clarify the goal. All right, so this is some of the tips that you can take into consideration as you post your daily objective. I also think that we do use acronyms on our board to show what it is that is expected, but I think that if we wrote it out, it would be better for the students so they can understand. So a product, I mentioned to you that we're going to be talking about a product today as well. The product is something that's expected to be completed by every student at the end of the lesson. It's done the last 5 minutes of class or the end of the lesson. A final check for understanding. It's looked at daily by the teacher to guide future instruction. likely to increase the opportunity for a student to retain important learning, and proof for the teacher that learning has occurred. So this product can be, we'll talk about that in just a moment, but this product is just kind of like your final, what did you get from today? Making sure that they're understanding. So here's what a product is not. So these are something that we want to stay away from. We don't want to teach a lesson and then at the end of every period expect our students to take a test or a quiz based on something that they've just learned. So it's not a test or a quiz. It's not designed to be a grade daily. So we don't want to grade them every time they take this end product because at the beginning, as we all know, they might not understand the lesson. So we're trying to gauge where they're at the end of that lesson. It's usually done in a group. It's usually verbal, except as appropriate in the lower grades. So, of course, this is all catered to the grade level that you're teaching as well. Here's some examples of products in language arts. We've got the classify, describe, and interpret. So it says, I will classify the words of given sentences into categories of parts of speech. Describe the procedures of a formal debate. Interpret, I will interpret passages of literature. So these are some of the products, and it goes on to give you examples for different um, subjects, four subjects. Sorry about that. So we've got one for each one here. Tips for the daily product. The product can be easily be completed individually by every student in 5 minutes or less at the end of the lesson. So it's something really short that they can do. I know we refer to it these days as like an exit ticket, right? Something that they can do quickly. The teacher needs to be able to look quickly at the product to assess whether the student actually understood. The product produces evidence of learning, and the product requires students to use their higher order thinking skills at the application stage or higher. So, in the Bloom's taxonomy wheel, what we have here are examples of ways that we can post. Um, in the orange here, we have verbs for our objectives. So when we're writing on our board, we can use some of this verbiage. Like today we are going to build, or today we are going to sketch or analyze. Right? These are words that we can use to describe our objective. In this bluish green out here are verbs for the product. So we're going to be, discussing the diagram, or we're going to be discussing the photograph that we're going to be doing today. And then here is going to be our level of knowledge that we're expected to do from the objective. Are we testing to see their comprehension? Are we trying to get them to apply the skill? So based on these categories, these are going to be some of the words that you could potentially use. I think it's um, a great little cheat sheet to have maybe near your desk or somewhere near a reminder where you're writing your objectives on the board. Do you use this right now?
I do, but I would like to have a copy of that, if you don't mind.
I'll be glad to make you a copy. It's a good reminder. I know that near my board I have my fundamental five there too, so that way I can regain and have this wheel as well. So as far before we move on to the next one, as far as framing the lesson, do you care to share? How do you do this in your classroom? Is it different, or how do you write your objectives?
Well, my objectives, I have them listed on the board, but I also have print them out for the kids, and they read it out loud and they discuss it with a partner and to see and check for understanding to see if they understand what they're going to be learning for the day. Um, Once we do that, they talk for 2-3 minutes, and then we get to the main lesson. And if there's time, then they have a one or two questions that they need to answer about what they learned today.
I like that because you're also implementing one of the other strategies that we're going to get to in a moment when you say that they talk to a partner to discuss it at the beginning. Another way that we can test this is to kind of do a pre survey, before we start our material, pass something out to test where they're at in their knowledge to see if what they know so we can gauge our lesson from there.
That's a good idea.
Thank you for sharing. All right, so we're going to move on to the second um, category of the fundamental five. And this category is going to be the power zone. So, can you guess what the power zone is going to be based on the pictures?
All hands on for group work.
All hands on group work. Somewhat, Mr. Picarino?
All the students collaborating with each other, having a say so.
Okay, great. That's part of it. Yes, that's part of what it is, and I'll go ahead and move on so that way I can discuss with you what it is. Okay. So, I mean, as teachers, we all know, I know you guys share this in common with me. We want to provide the best learning experience to our students. Unfortunately, it's not always possible just by lecturing, right? We have to provide these students the opportunity to work in groups. We have to provide them with opportunity to walk around and roam the room and feel like they're free to do that. So that way they can learn in a different um, dimension other than just listening to us. So it says, in your power zone, it is important to use the classroom space for learning rather than teaching. So in this case, what we're referring to is the power zone, looking at your classroom and looking at it like you want them to explore the classroom, use the classroom as their tool instead of just directly teaching to them all the time. Gone are the days where we sat there and just listened to teachers speak for hours and hours. Okay. So what is the power zone? It says there is a distinct correlation between the teacher's body position in the classroom and the student's success. Of course, this was taken from a manuscript in the Teachers Movement and Association, Associated Pedagogical and Discursive Practices. So again, it's you moving around, you positioning yourself and having them do these group activities. So it says why teach in the power zone. So we have a bunch of reasons here why we should teach in the power zone. It's to monitor understanding, to be able to answer questions, to manage transitions, address problems with any behavior that's going on, maximize the student learning, communicate with all the students, show interest, and promote equitable learning for all students. So the power zone, what we would be doing is that, after the directive has been given, we would allow them to break into their groups, whether it's two, four, um, they're break into their groups, and us and our responsibility in this portion of the power zone would be to be walking around. So we need to have proximity to our students. We need to be showing them that we are here. We are monitoring what they are doing, and in this case, like it says here, answering questions, communicating with them. You're stopping by to check for understanding. You can gauge some groups that might understand the lesson better than others, and it also gives you the ability to help your students that need more help, to differentiate the instruction, to be able to go over and provide that one-on-one time to those students. So our part is not to just, here is your group work, let me sit at my desk and type in grades or grade papers. No, our job is more to be walking around. That's what the power zone is all about, walking around and being there and letting them know that you do care and that you are aware of what they're doing. Okay, so if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to ask you if I can give you a note card and you guys can share with me what you think. Just picture your classroom and draw what a classroom setup might look like when it is specifically designed for teaching in the power zone. So I know typically, well, you know what? I'm not going to tell you what to draw. So if you guys don't mind just participating really quickly, you don't have to be artists. Just what would a classroom look like in the power zone? Give you a minute here to do that. How you guys doing over there? Good. I'm not an artist, so hopefully you guys can understand my sketch over here. So Mr. Tijerina, while you finish up, I'm just gonna share mine. So this is something that I drew. Again, I'm not an artist, and my drawing reflects classroom or classroom in groups, and then I just put X's everywhere. It's the best way I could portray that. And the X's stand for the teacher, right? And marking her power zone. So here I made like a little route. She's walking around. And in the middle, I put where she gets actually in the middle of the group, right? Instead of just walking around it, she gets involved in the group. So I left my desks a little spread apart here. So that way I have room to go in and actually engage with the students and, talk with them and see what's going on. Do you want to share what you have here?
I have in mind, I have a bunch of students who are just, they're standing in the center of the class.
Okay.
On the right side, I have one individual who is asking for help.
Okay.
And I have on the other end, I have one who heard that call and is saying, I can help you. In the middle, I have another one, let me explain this to you. So I have all these different conversations in the group where you have someone that needs help, someone who wants to help, someone's explaining, and then you have again, ideas just flowing around in a circle.
I like that. I like your people drawing too. Do you mind if I hold on to that?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Trevino, can you
On
share?
mine, I usually have the kids at least once a week, in centers, and they start with explore, and that's where they get the background of what they're going to be learning. And once they finish the activity, they move on to the reading station where they have to read for information and answer some questions. Once they're finished, they go up to technology and they have to do some research, um, and watch a video that deals with what they're learning. And once they're finished, they can either go to illustrate what they've learned, or they can go to the station where they have organized a vocabulary, that was brought up. After that, they go into writing what they've learned so far and, if possible, assess. And that's mine.
Thank
And
you.
if they,
And where are you in all this?
I am walking around and asking the kids, questions, to make sure that they understand, especially in the very beginning when they're exploring, because I don't want them to learn something that's not right.
Correct. You bring up some really good points. You keep bringing up some points that we're going to be seeing here in the next couple of slides as well. So thank you guys for participating. I think it's really important that we remember that as we're in our classrooms. I know sometimes, towards the end of 6 weeks or something, we're bombarded and we have a lot of, or testing days, we have a lot of things going on, but I think it's really important that we continue to work those power zones. We're in close proximity to all of our students, letting them know that we do care and that we are here to help anything that they need. Any questions? No? Okay. So some of the three areas or the three power zones. Sorry, I guess I didn't consider how slow this was. Some of the three areas that help the power zone helps is classroom management, building relationships, and improving teaching. So under classroom management, of course, we can address unwanted behavior. Obviously we all know this, right? As teachers, if the student knows that we're walking around, we're less likely to have any kind of distractions or disruptions in our classes. We're going to manage our transitions in between activities, and we're going to, of course, increase proximity like we talked about. We're building our relationships, we're connecting with our students, we're showing them that we actually care about what's going on with them versus, you know, here's your task, I'm gonna go sit back down. Really, I don't care what your outcome is as long as you hand me an assignment. We're building it, we're letting them know that we do care. And then, of course, improving teaching, monitoring, and adjusting our instruction. Like you said just a moment ago, we have to walk around and make sure that they understand what's going on. And even though we do groups, there might be some wrong information being relayed in that group. So we have to be very close to make sure that they are understanding it, that it is personal, answer any questions, and then provide feedback. I think you said that as well too, right? Provide feedback if we hear something that's not going right. So here's just an activity too that you can do. It says here how the students form teams of four, right? And then they'll count off from 1 to 4. So once they're in their little group of 4, count off. So then you can do your lesson. You can, at the end of your lesson, you can ask a question, right? So after you ask your question, we're going to give the students time to collaborate, right? This gives them time to talk, share ideas, opinions, right? And then the most important objective of this is to make sure that all the members of that group can answer that question, right? They all need to know the answer. Even if it's not their own answer, if it's somebody else's answer, they'll be able to express and say, well, Mrs. Trevino said, or Mrs. Trevino brought up a good point, because at the end, you're going to call a random number. So, they're random 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to say, okay, I want to hear from all the ones. So at the end of this, group one over here, the one from here, one from here, one from there. Can you please go ahead and answer the question, okay? And so everybody will stay standing to make sure that all of the ones participate, right? Again, that's just something that you can do, that they make sure that everybody's participating. Okay, so then we have praise and encouragement. Do you have any questions before I move on to praise and encouragement?
No.
Okay. Thank you guys for your patience. Praise and encouragement. Okay, so another very important part of our job is praising our students, acknowledging the little things, letting them know that we do see that they are improving. Especially our students that we have that are troubled or have things going on, it's really important for us to reassure them that we are watching and we are noticing their improvement. So here we go. It says, compliments and encouragement go a long way towards making children feel good. Descriptive praise, where you tell the child exactly what it is that you like, works best of all. So we have to be very specific with them, right? On top of that, praising children when they're behaving well is likely to make them want to keep behaving well. Right? We all know that, right? Our students like to be recognized and not for the bad things. They like to be recognized for the good things. So praise and encouragement. In a student, what we want to do here, and it's not, you want to praise all of your students, but you want to praise those especially that you have determined that need that encouragement. So you can select and define a behavior to increase. So in this case, you notice that the student is very loud or talks out of turn, right? So you've already targeted that one behavior in your head and you know that that's what you're looking for. And then choose reinforcers to help them and deliver positive reinforcement. Um, Monitor the student's performance and do quick assessments of the learning. So once we've got that, we are going to be able to give them reinforcers or ways that we can help them or praise them, right? So this is based on sensory. So based on, hearing, sense, smell. So we've got a couple different things here. Sensory, we've got listening to the music on your iPhone, letting them choose a poster, something they can see. In the lower grades, you might let them do something like view the kaleidoscope, blow bubbles. I know in the lower grades, especially too, in pre-K, I remember doing pre-K, sitting in a rocking chair and just letting them have that time to sit and be on their own, or in this case, selecting our girls here in middle school. It's really important to them. So some natural reinforcers, right? These are some of the things that we see that the kids already enjoy doing. So obviously it requires a little bit of attention on our part, which I know we all put in, is we notice something that they already like and then we can use that as a reinforcer. So playing a game, I know Mr. Trevino, you're really good at that with the kids. This can be a natural reinforcer. You know they like doing it and you can help them or allow them to do that as encouragement. Erasing the whiteboard. I know we have a lot of students that like to have that role. Watching a movie or being the captain. I know the students too, like to pass out papers or like to pick up papers or grade papers. So these are just some of the natural reinforcements that we see that they already like, and we're just praising them by allowing them to do those things. Do you all do any of that right now?
I just do the one with the writing on the board. There's always one kid that wants to change the date or write whatever.
Yes. Mr. Tijerina?
I do the playing of the game through Kahoot or through what's the other one that we use also?
Kahoot and
It's Kahoot
EduSmart?
and no, it's not Kahoot. It's
Study Island.
No, it's not. Well, it's Study Island too, but it's Kahoot and Quizizz
Oh, okay.
with the ZIZZ. So
Oh,
we
yes.
play the game. Also, because we as far as watching a movie, we watch like historical documentaries as well, and they enjoy them. But it's more like if they do well, I'll play it for them. Also, like being a team captain, when I put them in groups, like I have a leader all the time. So I'll tell them, you're the leader. Who's the leader? I'll have them choose, and I'll be the leader. Okay, so you're responsible for the flow of what's going to happen in this group. So I usually make 5 groups, and then you have a leader for every section because they want to be leaders.
And then they love it,
So
right?
yeah, they love it exactly.
Once they're in that role, they take it really seriously, and especially
Yes.
those students that we have that might otherwise not participate or might
Mhm.
otherwise misbehave. Making them a leader kind of reverses that on them, right, in a positive way, and we get to see a different side of them. Thank you guys for sharing. The next ones we're going to cover are material reinforcers. So this is for your student who requires a little bit more immediate reinforcement, right? They like something tangible, something that they can see. or something that they, feel that they get right away. So some of our natural reinforcers could be movie tickets, gift cards, right? And I kind of tailored this to our school, our our age level. I'm sorry,
Right.
our middle school students. So we have here like, oh, I said erasers because the kids are always asking me for erasers, right? We've got bookmarks for our students that like to read, gift cards, mechanical pencils, and movie tickets, right? So this is something that's more tangible for them, something that we kind of need to get their attention right away, so that way we don't lose them. Okay. So
Now, how often do you do that?
these material
Yeah.
reinforcers, this would be more at the
Yes, yes.
beginning. So this would be, and this one I think is more for your severe cases.
Okay.
So someone that you really need to reach that might otherwise not accept, erasing the whiteboard. You have some students that really like that, and you have some other students that means absolutely nothing to them. But being able to receive, a pair of tickets or a pair or a gift card to the movies, that will mean something to them. That's going to grasp their attention. So I think more severe cases, and it's only once, and I'm about to tell you about that.
Okay.
Just a second. There's generalized reinforcers. What these are tokens, like little, little tokens showing them that you appreciate their behavior, and it's something that they can save up to be cashed in for a later time, for like a later price, right? Exchange for something later. The credit cards. So there's points, right? There's tokens. There's raffle tickets. I know I have a set of raffle tickets too to encourage good behavior in my classroom. And those are something that they can collect, and then at a later time, once they have the specified amount, they can trade them in for something else. And then now we'll talk about the social reinforcers. So the social reinforcers are probably the cheapest ways that you can reinforce a student, right? And they're things that we probably again already do in our classroom to everybody, but to some students it might mean more than to others. And social, of course, is just smiling, simply letting them know, hey, great job, a thumbs up, a high five, and of course being close to them, just coming by and saying, hey, I noticed you did a good job, pat on the back, you deserve it. Um, these social reinforcers, and this is what I was just going to tell you, was they're effective when they're used by themselves. So instead of going to the material, instead of going to the other reinforcers first, if you just use these on a constant basis, they're more effective. And if you pair them, going back to what you asked about the material, if you pair them with another reinforcer, then eventually what it is that you can drop okay, let's say the more expensive reinforcer,
Right.
and then you can just say this and they will be equally content because they are still getting that positive feedback. So if you pair them at the beginning, I know we do that anyway, walk around, hey, high five, good job, or hey, handshake. If you pair it with that and something else, then eventually you can let one of them go. Questions about that? No? So effective praise, when does it need to happen? Well, guys, immediately, right? We can't wait. If they did something, you don't. It's not as effective if you let the day go by or the next day or 2 days later. Hey, by the way, I like what you did 3 days ago because they probably don't remember, right? So it needs to happen in that moment. Hey, you know what, Mrs. Trevino? Thank you for using your inside voice today. I appreciate that you're making an effort to speak in a classroom voice. Frequently, every time we notice, hey, you know what, you did it again. Or if we share and we collaborate as a team, then we can have it going across all the board, right? So they leave my class and go to yours. Oh, you know what? Mrs. Hernandez told me you were doing a great job in there, and now you're continuing in here. Enthusiastically, of course. I know we all know that, right? We can't be sarcastic with the kids when we're talking to them. It has to be genuine and sincere that we are giving them this praise, making eye contact, and letting them know specifically what the behavior is that you appreciate, right? We can't just be in general, hey, good job today. Now, good job doing what, right? So we need to be specific. Good job, like I said, using your inside voice. Or good job. Thank you so much for remembering to raise your hand before you threw trash, Mr. Figueroa. I know you're really big on that in your class. Thank you for remembering to do that, or remembering to ask me before you get up to sharpen your pencil. So we have to be really specific with the students. So these are, I'm not going to go through all of them, but just maybe one or two. Effective versus ineffective praise. So it said, oh, can't see with my, is delivered contingently upon student performance of desirable behaviors or genuine accomplishment. Ineffective is delivered randomly, right, and without specific attention to genuine accomplishment. So again, like I said right now, kind of being specific and descriptive towards that behavior on a consistent basis versus randomly. And let's just skip down here to the bottom. Help students to better appreciate their thinking, problem solving, and performance, right? So they're going to start to think about that. Oh, they noticed, or maybe I should think about this before I do it. Versus orient students towards comparing themselves with others. Right? That's one of the worst things. We don't want to compare their behavior to somebody else and ask them to model. It's going to be more towards our classroom rules, right? They're modeling our classroom rules. So there's a whole bunch of those that, I think we're all pretty good judge of character. I think maybe we could all use reminders every now and then, right? Of what's effective and ineffective. And I can send you guys a PowerPoint too. That way, we can go over it or you can have a refresher. Anything that you notice that doesn't have to be a long, something you might want to share that you do that you've seen that works for positive reinforcement?
Well, what I've done is I know when you were saying when you said right now earlier, um, like, oh, just don't just say good job, like be specific. I've noticed that when I do that, it puts a smile on their faces. Or when I tell them, hey, you did a really awesome job on that test. You got an 85. Last time you really bombed it, but this time you kind of like brought it up. Like that's awesome. Like having that conversation and then giving them that high five or just shaking their hands professionally, um, it encourages them. So no, I mean, those are stories that I can share with you because I mean, I go through all 7 classes, and you have those that walk around like zombies that they just like nothing matters, but you
Right.
tell them something, and it's like you see a glow in their face,
Right.
and that's what it's about.
Super
That
important.
is true. Because I know we have students that come in, their self-esteem is very low because of grades being so low. They scored low on their exams, and the next exam comes up and they scored maybe 2, 3 points higher, and they're still kind of not feeling good about themselves, but just letting them know, hey, you increased your grade, so that's good. And instead of saying, well, you could have done better. So I seen a difference in that with the kids.
I think both of you guys brought up great points too, and something that I know that we do for our students. I think it's especially impactful because we have 153 students.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you remembered that test and that student last time you got this and this time you went, I think the fact that we remember that specific individual, I think that's even impactful on them because they're like, wow, you remembered my test out of 153 students. So that's pretty specific too, being able to tell them their grade. Thank you guys for sharing. I'm sorry, bear with me. I think we have 2 more sections, okay? And we'll go through them really quickly. We've got small group and purposeful talk. So I know we've touched a little bit about this. In the area of intellectual development, young adolescents prefer active over passive learning activities. They prefer interaction with peers during learning activities. So I think we've heard this a million times, right? Like I said, gone are the days where we just sat there and listened. Our students want to stand up, they want to engage with their peers, they want to use technology, they want to be modern, right? They want to learn in a modern way. So this is one of the ways that we can do that. What is small purposeful talk? Well, um, it's frequent talk, right? Happens often. It's small group talk. It's content discussion based on the objectives, and it's plan discussion, right? So in this case, I know that all of these studies have been happening, and they say, and I know we'll see that in a moment too, is that they remember more of what they're doing and what they're saying to each other than if we were to just lecture them, right? So our talk is important, but their talk is more powerful than us talking. Small group, it says suggestions, talk, partner talk, turn and talk, shoulder partner. I think you mentioned, I told you we'd get to that shoulder partner talking. Um, to the person next to them, face partner, and think, pair, share. Mr. Hitting, I know you do a lot of think, pair, and sharing. So these are some suggestions. Shoulder talk, it says talk to your shoulder partner about when in the planning process teachers should create small group purposeful talk. So this is meant to be in a huge group, right? So we don't have to do that right now, but this is a perfect example, right? So if we were in a big training with a bunch of other teachers, I would like to tell them, hey, let's stop right now and how about we talk about this with your shoulder partner? So that's an example. Cone of learning. So again, this is kind of what I just said to you right now. If you look here, there's all of this information, but the main part here is that we remember 90% of what we both say and do physically versus just what we read or what we hear, what we see, right? So that's huge. I know that there's so much to read here, but this is the most impactful to me, right? Is that we remember 90%. You know, you're going to remember that experience or that conversation or what happened in that classroom when you were having that discussion. So, basic steps of think, pair, share. I know, Mr. Tijerina, you do this a lot. So it says question, right? We're going to ask an open-ended question. Tell the students that they will think, pair, share the answer, all right? Thinking, we're going to give them 1 to 2 minutes to think quietly about their own response. Walk around the room to reinforce this quiet task. It's independent. Pairing them, ask the students to share their thoughts with their partners and ask questions if they don't understand what their partner is saying, right? So that involves them having a conversation, circulate around the room, listening to conversations. Like you said, too, it's important that we listen to make sure that they're giving each other good information, right? And then sharing it. Ask for student volunteers to share as you begin this process. Later, you should call on non volunteers to increase student accountability in this cooperative learning strategy. Something, you know, I do in my classroom. I don't know if you guys share. You know, I have my cups. So I really don't. I ask for volunteers, but most of the time I just draw sticks, and they know it's the luck of the sticks, right? That way, I have my shy students and the ones that love to answer all answering at the same time. And then reinforce the expectation of active listening by requiring students to acknowledge the thoughts of classmates, right? So they can say, I agree with Mrs. Tijerina when Mr. Tijerina when he said, right? I don't agree with Mrs. Terlino when she said this, or I started the problem like this, but then I changed my mind, right? So that way we can also kind of have an idea of what went on in that conversation, right? They can kind of reiterate what the other person said. Again, repetition, right? And they're keeping that information. Benefits of small talk or small purposeful talk. They're reluctant to write. Some students are reluctant to write at first um, and benefit from practice sharing thoughts with a partner, right? So some students, and we see that all the time, they don't want to participate or they don't want to share what they have to say. Reluctant students get to practice in a small setting before speaking to the whole class. And these students can also choose to share their thoughts, their partner's thoughts, or both, right? So I think that's really important too, because sometimes I know I've been in that predicament. I tell the students all the time, and Mr. Tijirin, I know I turn to you quite often, right? Sometimes I don't have my own opinion, so I go to you all and I ask you your opinion first, right? And then from there, I'm able to start to think, you know, turn my wheels. But you know, when and if I'm asked about it, I might say, well, because I was having this conversation, I was able to think of this on my own. I think I use this a lot actually in my own life. So again, I know we talked about it. Think, pair, share, reciprocal teaching. There's a chair touch, freeze tag, and clock buddies. So these are all just different ways that we can do clock buddies, purposeful talking. And I know just you know we just talked about this one. You know, we can do the freeze tag in the classroom, just where they are going, not running. Of course, we can't have that in the classroom, but going around freezing. And then the clock buddies. I don't know if y'all have done that in your class. You do a 12, 3, 6, 9 appointment. And then once they have those appointments, you meet with that appointment, right? Oh, meet with your 12 o'clock and discuss this. Meet with your 6 o'clock and discuss that. I think I'll get to the last part and then we'll share at the end. Is that okay with you all?
Yes.
Okay. Critical writing. Probably not my strongest suit, but I work on it, right? So critical writing here, it says, what is it? It's purposeful and intentional writing. Plan the writing prompts or stems during your planning process. So it's really important, of course, that we plan in advance. That way we know exactly what it is that we want the students to be writing about. Content writing based on objectives. It should occur in your content area. And the writing solidifies the learning for the students. So I think a lot of the times this is also very important for us to have our students to write what it is they understand, because what it is they understood. This way we see, are they able to apply the information? Are they able to share the information? Some ways you can do this are a minute paper. Students write a short written response to 1 or 2 questions provided by the teacher regarding the learning. So that would be just, you know, a real quick paper. Another way, well, I was going to share with you here was something that I do in my classroom. I know Mr. Piketty and I have shared with you before, is I do the slap me with your knowledge. So it's a quick thing. That's why the post-its are all over my door. So I waste a lot of post-its, but that's okay. I give the students each a post-it. I try to color code them by class, so that's why there's all the different colors. And then I pose a question or two, and then I ask them to go ahead and answer that. And then they like that because I say, "Slap me with your knowledge." On the way out, they slap it on my door. Kind of just letting me know what they got. But the questions that I ask them, they're difficult, right? It's a higher order thinking skill. I ask them something like, how can you apply this, or where, something to make them think. And they like doing that. And I have to constantly ask the office for post-its. So, how do you determine this is an activity that we can do? How do you determine what your critical writing prompts you're going to use, and when should you do this, right? So that would be something that, again, if we were in a larger group, I would be asking you guys, how can you do this? Do you have anything you'd like to give me some feedback on that? So how would you determine what your writing prompt would be?
I would determine, well, it depends on like the topic that we're in. Um, so like I guess some of the examples that I've done lately this week, let me see if I can go and think into the week, because I know I did several. By the way, this is what I did. Like, so we're going into like a topic for like the Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So I the kids when I was direct teaching, because we can't do it for too long. I noticed I felt with the kids, they were fighting me. So I went home and I said, you know what, I'm going to restructure it. So what I did is that they have to learn 8 inventors, 9 inventions. Okay. So instead of me teaching it to them, I created a template to where they had to write about one individual, but they had to write about that one inventor that they could relate with.
Okay.
So they needed I put all the inventions right next to their names. And what the kids did is that they found the one that they liked and they built their relationship with that inventor, and they wrote about the individual. That's kind of how I did it, and that's how I restructured my lesson. Totally different from last year, and it worked out well. So the kids chose their writing prompt. They chose their topic. They chose what to write with, and they even had the option to expand on it. So I guess, when should you do this? When you see your lesson going down in flames, that's
Okay.
when you
Then
should
you have
do
to
that.
Yeah, and
Yes.
if planning doesn't work out, like you said, is there something that you know that you can use? I like that too, because it means that they had to understand. They
Yes.
really had to relate to the invention that they were writing about.
And they still had to present it. So
Oh,
they
that's
had to
awesome.
present it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you want to share? You want to go?
I'll
Okay,
skip this
at the end? Okay.
one.
All right. So then another topic that they can write about, right, is their muddiest point. That's the picture, right? Write down the most confusing or least clear part of what you just heard or saw, right? That's also a way to get them to write. Doesn't necessarily mean that they understood. Tell me what you didn't understand or why. Teacher collects the responses, which provides immediate feedback on student understanding. So I think it's really important that we do this too. I know I'm guilty. I don't always do this.
Yeah.
I sometimes don't realize it until the quiz comes or the test comes, and then I realize, oh, they didn't understand what I was saying. It's time, I know.
Mhm.
But, if we got into the practice of maybe doing this even twice a week, I think that would help us in the long run, because we're knowing from the get-go, what is it that they don't understand? Because I can assume you understand. And it happened today when the students had the presenters. They came in and talked to them about everything I just talked to them about, college and essays and FAFSA. And I had my classes that they were just on it. And I had a couple of classes or students, more specifically, and I said, wow, we spent 5 weeks on this chapter because it's a long chapter, but, along the way, if you do these things, we can sit, and even if it's a one-on-one, and just say, hey, I saw that you didn't understand this. What is it that you don't understand?
And I think that's important, because I know that we have students that are embarrassed to ask questions,
Yes.
although they're together all day long. Like brothers and sisters, they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
So that's
true.
it works.
That is very true. I'm one of those. I don't like to ask questions until I get here. Okay, so Pros and cons. Students search for at least two sides to an issue, right? So they can write on this. If this works well, of course, in social studies and language arts. I can see where this would benefit you. Students are always telling me about your class and they're thinking in a perspective of a particular person. So that's another way that they can write. They can choose a side, right? Or two sides. I see two different sides to the issue. And then journals. I know we do this. I do a lot of journaling in my class. Um, we can ask them questions. Have you ever wondered about? Let me tell you about. You pick a topic that fits. Your lesson or what you just taught, and have them write about that. I like reading their journal responses too. And then here's just an activity that you could do for some of those students too. It says don't break the bank. So this would be an example, right? An administrator has asked you to explain the educational benefits of critical writing. Compose a response to their inquiry. Each word you write will cost 10 cents. You must spend between $2.70 and $3. There's just a little component for them to consider, right? You throwing in some math, just things that they're going to be applying different knowledge. List the strategies that you will implement in your classroom. Which strategy you think will be the hardest to implement, and which strategy you think will be the easiest to implement. So I guess this at the very end here. Let's look back. Yes, look back here, and can you all tell me? So just kind of, I know, go back. So we had frame the lesson, the power zone, praise and encouragement, critical writing, and then the small group purposeful talk. Can you tell me which ones maybe you already implement in your class and some that might be difficult?
I think with the hardest part is the time. Since we only have about 40 minutes, it's the hardest to implement everything. And to do it in one class period per day, could be extended to two that week, right? So I think that's the only problem.
The challenge?
I think for me, I think the most challenging one is time, but I think the kids struggle with like critical writing, and it's because of time. I think, and that's our fault, but not really because we don't have the time, so we try to rush through with whatever we have. Then we give them topics, and we expect them to write as great as they can't, and they struggle and they stumble, and we need to correct it, but we need more time. So it's one of those things where you're just like, okay, which you do what you can with the time that you have. But critical thinking would be my not so strong as far as the implementing it in the class with the kids, because it is history and it's 300 years of history with 92 standards, and it's just way too much to do. Uh, but it could be beneficial. For example, like if you had blocks, on at least an hour and 20 minutes, where you can spend 20 to 30 minutes, and then the rest, you could do on work on your core standards. They could work that way, but that's wishful thinking.
You never know.
You know?
I think that's hard too. And I think for me, it's hard because sometimes, like you said, because of their inexperience writing, sometimes I'm not even clear if they don't understand the topic or if they just don't write well. And that's hard for me to understand sometimes too, right? Are they just not able to put it out there in writing? I think framing the lesson, like I said, we do probably regularly, all of us. Your power zone, I've been in your classrooms. I know you all do that as well. Praise and encouragement, I know as a team, I think our team does that well. So I think maybe critical writing, right? Because purposeful talk, you talked earlier about the stations, and I know you do that as well, and you do think fair share. So critical writing, I guess, consensus that we would be our weakness. I guess that's something that we can work on. Since we're doing everything else, maybe we can be more intentional now that we know that that's one of our weaknesses, and try to do that maybe, like I said, once a week or twice, even if it's just the muddiest. What didn't you understand? And I guess that covers my thoughts slide. And just the last slide says, I never teach my pupils. I only attempt to provide the conditions in which they can learn, by Albert Einstein. So thank you all for being here today. I appreciate you. And I really hope that this serves as a reminder of something that we're expected, or it's expected to be seen in our classrooms as our administration comes in, to provide us something to keep in mind as well if we want to be in administration, what we'll be looking for as well, and something that we can train our employees on from day one. This can be something that goes in to our back to school training. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for inviting.